All right, hello everyone. Brian Brown here, hosting the YSBH Where Are They Now podcast. This is episode 14. Today we've got a special guest, Mr. David Frost, who I met, I believe it was back in 2010 at a college campus in Kansas. He's got a really unique story about his time in WorldVentures, and then he's done very well for himself in a number of different areas. And we'll talk more about what he's doing today as a potential thing for you to maybe explore if you're looking for something. So, Mr. David Frost, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks, Brian, for having me. It's good to talk to you again and be involved with what you're doing.
Yeah, it's always fun catching up with people who you used to work with, hear what they're up to now. You are somebody that our group inside of World Ventures always looked up to, had respect for, with not only, you being a professor, but a professor who had real world business experience, which I think was pretty rare, and was willing to test out things that are outside of the box. And in addition to that, the family that you've raised is something that I respect and admire. So looking forward to having the conversation.
Thanks, Brian.
Take us back to when you first heard about World Ventures, if you remember approximately the time and what your thought process was about why would you get involved with network marketing as a professor and specifically World Ventures?
Sure. First of all, I came about being a professor probably a little different than most, probably 30 years. A little bit before internet was really a thing, around 2000, I suppose, is when it really took off. When you could, after 2000, you could really, do some online stuff. Before that, you had to call your broker. But the point of it is that I was able to work from home, which was my goal. And before that, I ran and sold several businesses. Um, I was one of the first ones when cellular phones were not popular, and people weren't sure if it was going to work. And I signed a contract with a company called Cellular One, and I had the rights to Kansas. And I remember selling cell phones for $1,000 a piece. They were called car phones, bag phones at the time, and minutes were like a buck a minute. And nobody had heard of texting. Of course, I remember when it came out, I had no idea that anyone would ever want to text instead of talk. And so that tells you how old I am. But the point is, I enjoy business. I like business because I like the people you run into. Um, Business people have to think different than employees. And I don't think either is better or worse. And I want people to understand that. You, I find you pretty much are what you are. My personality when I was 15 is the same guy I am today. And when I was 15, when I was 14, actually, I got fired from a hamburger place in Spokane, Washington. I talked the manager into hiring me, and within a few weeks, he fired me, and probably rightly so. I don't recall. But what I do recall from that is I don't like when someone else decides my value, that I'm fireable. Why? Why didn't you teach me? Whatever. I had all these questions, and it was my first taste of not wanting to work for someone else who decided what I'm worth, but to decide what I'm worth myself. It's different. My dad is completely opposite. Loved working for the post office, was a great employee, wouldn't do anything different. Um, that would be my nightmare job. So again, you know, there's no better or worse. It's just identifying who you are and doing those skill sets. I often say, especially when I was teaching school, if you find that you're in college and you're still not doing that well at the sport you've spent 10,000 hours working on, it's possible you chose the wrong sport. You might be a D1 player in baseball, and here you are trying to play football. Don't try to be something you're not just because your mom or dad or somebody, whatever reason you thought it was a good idea. So I decided to teach at the college because I felt like I had a lot of stuff that they should know. And I think you mentioned earlier, one of my annoyances in getting my degree was it's hard to find a business professor who actually had experience, which should shock people. Um, it shouldn't be that way. There are some businesses, some obviously some professors that, you can't get experience in. Uh, Certainly, some of the sciences, but to me, a business professor ought to have been someone, they shouldn't even look at whether you have a degree. They should look at whether you've had any successful businesses, in my opinion. And the guy who ran the business department asked me if I'd worked there. It was perfect timing because my daughter was just graduating high school and she's our first. And I had four more after that. And if you teach at that college, there was 300 schools you could send your kids could go for free. So I thought, well, I could do that, and then they can all go for free. And I did. And 15 years later, the last one graduated, and then I retired from the school. So, and that's been about 5 years ago.
Mm,
And so, one of the things that this guy that hired me to be in the business department asked me, because at the time, and I think it's probably always been true, but network marketing companies recruit fairly heavily on college campuses through students. And so rather than just ignoring it, he came to me and said, "Hey, would you take a look at network marketing and see what you think? And can we teach these students what it is? We don't even know what it is, you know?" And if somebody tells you, "I hate network marketing," what you're really hearing is somebody says, "I've never made a dime in network marketing." They've either heard horror stories or they were in a horror story themselves. But you never hear someone who's making $10,000 a month saying, "I hate network marketing." But it's that way with any business. And so I started studying network marketing. And I think, if I recall right, one of the first people, I just went out and got the top 10 people, money makers. What I did, I reached out to all of them and said, "Hey, this is who I am. That's what I'm trying to do." And one of them was Byron Schrog, which was with you guys at the time.
mm.
Uh,
I didn't know
yeah.
that. I didn't know
Yeah.
that that was the process. Continue. This is fascinating.
Yeah. So he, as you know, I think you know him quite well. He actually lived 60 miles south of us, where I live in Wichita. So he let me come on board, follow him around to the meetings. I listened to him, I listened to those around him. And what struck me most about Byron was um, eh, the same as most business people is they actually have a passion for helping other people succeed. It's not just network marketing. I know a lot of network marketers say that that's what they are, and they are. But I find that true no matter what space I'm in business world. And that's why I said I like business because you find people who succeed through helping others. And if you do that, you're usually successful. It's just amazing to me. And now that I'm on the far side of my life and I look back, I see that everything that really mattered came through some relationship that I potentially had nothing to get out of, but did it simply because it's another person who needed help. And some of those are some of the richest relationships I have. So I saw that in Byron. There's a few other people like him in other companies that allowed me to follow him as well. Very fascinating. So what we ended up doing at the college is creating a network marketing class, the curriculum. Now, those that hate network marketing often would bash the school and say, "Oh, I can't believe you're teaching these kids scams or whatever." And as we know, you have those that hate and those that love something, but very few actually find the facts about anything. And the facts for network marketing at the college was you should know about it. So when somebody, Amway, Mary Kay, it doesn't matter, WorldVentures, when they come to you and say you should join, you should know what is that? What do I look for? If I say you should buy my business, a business student, when they graduate, should say, well, let me go look at these five things. If you're not a business student, you might not know what to look for. You don't know what a P&L statement, you don't know what anything is, so you wouldn't know what to look for. So I wanted, the school wanted actually, and I after that wanted as well, was to take these students through a class that says, here's what network marketing is, here's the different pay plans, um, everything there is to know. And I think I took it a step further than most. I wasn't required to do this, but I decided to join like four or five of them Students would come and say, "Hey, would you help me do this or that?" And I'd go ahead and pay the whatever, $100, $200, sign up and went out and worked it with them, whatever they were doing. And some of them was WorldVentures, and that's how I got to know them. And I think we had some amazing trips down in the Caribbean
Yeah.
with some of those students. A lot of fun trips through that experience. But what happened through that process is I realized it's no different than any other thing out there. It's not bad. It's not good. It's what you make of it. And so I created a process to help my students. And I don't remember if this was a part when you were around or not, but if it was, remind me of it. But
Yep.
I created a process that said, um, if you could start a store, let's say you want to start an ice cream shop. It'd be really cool is if before you opened it, and some people would call this a feasibility study, you might go out into that town and say, if I had an ice cream shop, would you buy from it? And if you ask, you know, 10% of the population or 5% of the population, you'd have a pretty good idea if what you have is a good idea. The problem is when most people write business plans or do a feasibility study to decide if they should do a business, they've already got in mind that they're going to do it and they're just trying to get proof that it's going to work, or they're doing it because the bank said you need to bring us one, whatever it is. But in
Hmm.
reality, you're doing it to find out if you have what it takes to do it and if you have a good idea that other people think is a good idea. That's
Right.
what business 101. So network marketing is cool because you can risk, I don't know, let's say $300, let's say $1,000. And I'm sure you can join some for 1,000 or even two. Let's go crazy. Let's do $5,000. You spend $5,000 to join some network marketing company, and you would find out within 6 months if you have what it takes to run any business. Doesn't matter what, network marketing, ice cream stand, coffee store, it doesn't matter. But the nice thing I like about that is if you lost that $5,000, you're probably going to survive. But if you go start a regular business today, not network marketing, like I started a tire store once, um, full service tire store. I mean, I had $150,000 in that thing the first 6 months before we even opened the door.
Hmm.
The cell phone business. I had stores all over Kansas. We invented kiosk out in the middle of the mall so we could harass you when you walked by with the cell
Is
phone.
that right?
I I taught my employees weren't allowed to sit inside the booth. I talked to the mall managers and let me have just a little seat and a table out in the middle of the where they had to walk, and my guys would just sit out there with a phone and say, hey, may I ask you a question? Hey, have you ever seen one of these? And they engaged, and we sold phones like that. But again, that was before people even knew what they were, and there was a stigma at first with cellular phones that they were just for the rich people because it was $1 a minute and it was $1,000 to install in your car, but they were super cool. And so everybody kind of wanted one. And as you know, it has obviously changed since then. But we had to get through some of those issues that people, well, what is that? Do I need one? And it's the same with joint network marketing. So I can join for easily a couple $100 with any network marketing company, but I have to spend probably 100, 200,000 and probably should have 1 million in the bank in order to fund that thing if I want to make it go. Anything go, restaurant, whatever. We see them come and go, a lot of businesses, because they have 30, $40,000. That's all they've got. They go get this thing going and they can't survive 6 months unless they have a good business coming in, which is not likely. It takes
Hmm.
people a while to learn. So all this stuff I learned the hard way from age 20 to 40 and ran, I don't know, let's say 6 or 7 different businesses from a tire store, did some real estate stuff, cellular phone, certainly, and an RV park, and just anything that I thought met some of these things we talk about. So I took these students into this. And I tried to teach them this. I said, before you join a network marketing company, you should go out and find 6 people that agree it's a good idea. Um, and what I thought was a great idea about that is because if you get 6 people in any network marketing company or in any, let's talk about a church. if I wanted to start a church and I could go find six people that thought I might be a good pastor, and they said, "Yeah, we're on board. We'll come and support you." And I said, "On one condition, though." "What is that?" "Well, will you go get each of you get six? Do you have six people that think it's a good idea to come to church and pastor, or to buy my ice cream, or to buy my soap and shampoo, whatever it is, right?" Because what you're learning through that process is that I have the skills necessary to communicate effectively to the world around me about what I'm doing, and they, in turn, think it's a good idea. If you have that, if you have those skills, then you can probably succeed at anything. But what I was trying to tell my students is, why not just risk a couple $100? You don't even have to risk that. You could actually, you don't even have to sign up. You can say, "Hey, I'm thinking about joining WorldVentures, and I think what do you think about it?" And go to your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, your friends, and say that. And they might say, "Man, we love you. We'll do whatever you want." Or you might find out they don't have any respect for you at all. It's a
Hmm.
good way to find out, right? And so that's what I was trying to teach. And some of them we had some tremendous success over the years with financially and meeting people like you and like Byron. Um, they're just all over the place, and I love that I have those experiences with those people and still do with a lot of people just like that. And that's how you meet them, is in this business world. So that's what network marketing experience I had, and I taught that class for about 10 years, helping these students succeed if they wanted to in that space. And a final point about that, I think what struck me is two things. Students today, and have been for I don't know how many years before my time, they don't really come to the school thinking that the professors or teachers are there to teach them anything. And I understand, because we've all had those really bad experiences from grade school, junior high, high school, where we have bad teachers. It's just a job to them. They don't have experience, like we talked about, a college professor. You can go get your PhD in business, have never ran a business in your life, and then go get hired on in a D1 school as a professor. And you've never done it. And if you haven't done it, you don't know what it's like. If I had a surgeon working on me, I want somebody that not only has the PhD, but has done like 50 of them, maybe 100 of them. Then I'm like, okay, let's do this. I was the other day, I had to get some cut off of my neck, and I asked the guy, I said, "Well, how many have you done?" He looked at me like, "I've never been asked that, but that's a great question. You should know." So he told me, and it's just how we are. We want to know that stuff. So these students would come into class, and keep in mind, Bethany is not a D1 school, and actually, the division therein is one of the, it's a division for non D1 athletes to go play sports. It's a continuation of high school. 80%, I think, or high 70s, 80% of these students are athletes, non D1 athletes. If I was going to start a school, that's what I'd start, because most students are non D1 athlete. Most athletes aren't going to make a D1 school. The 98% that can't go D1 are still looking for a school and still want to experience that sports that they did in high school. Nothing wrong with that. But what was wrong with it is, I would ask them the first day of class, and you got to remember, 8 out of 10 students in my class were in a sport. And I'd say, "How many here are going to go probably play pro in your sport?" And believe it or not, over half the class would raise their hand. And I would say to them as nicely as I can, but as honest as I could, is, "So why are you at Bethany? Because you aren't on track. There's D1 athletes that don't go pro, like most of them." And so helping them understand that you really need to spend that 10,000 hours that we've heard about for years as something that you could possibly be good at. And whatever it is that got you here is not it. You aren't good at that. Even though you think the illusion that you're going to go pro, you're not. So why don't you learn something while you're at school, like how to make money, how to survive? And as you may know, I don't really care about money. It's kind of like, I mean, I don't care about food when I'm not hungry, but you care about money when you need it. But in America, it's not hard to come up with $50,000, $60,000 a year. Most people that have any kind of work ethic can go out and make it in America. If you have other issues, handicaps, I get that. But I'm talking about just average Joe, you and I go out and compete. We could go from nothing and make 50 to $100,000 within a year doing something, whatever it is. But where you get a head start is if you go to college or a trade school and you actually plan it out and say, I'm going to get really good at X, Y, Z. Well, what frustrated me is, and part of why I wanted to work with these students in the network marketing is I would on the back wall, no matter what class I was in, and I taught the investing classes, of course, is I would have my day trading up. The my boss allowed me to day trade. It was one of the conditions. So I had kept it in my office and I would set up the trade. And then go teach. But then eventually I said, well, why don't I just have it on the back and tell these guys, hey, one of the things you could learn to get good at is investing. So you should go take this investing class when it comes up. It's a junior level class, a 300 level class. So I know you're freshmen now, but just something you should think about. And I'm going to show you what that looks like up here on the board. And I would open up like a $5,000 account and just have it sitting there and I'd trade. It doesn't take much. When you've done it a long time, you see it and you just go in and trade. And what discouraged me was, well, I think that's the most clever thing in the world, and I could make 500 to 1,000 bucks, let's say, in that hour class, anything. Even if you made 100 bucks on a $5,000 account, that's killing it, right? And you extrapolate that out over if I had 10,000 or if I had 100,000, you could see where you could be making good money. And I'd never once had a student. I mean, they go, wow, ooh, wow, but nobody ever came by and said, "Hey, now, professor, how do I do this?" I mean, I don't want to wait till my junior year. I want to know how. No, they were still on their thing, football, basketball, whatever. And I realized that they we have taught them in our culture that school is just something you get through, you put up with. You have to put in the time. You have to get this piece of paper that says, "Oh, I'm a whatever, a PhD or whatever." And they forget that you're supposed to learn a skill along the way. And I think we've done that to them. I remember hating high school and college because it was mindless, just papers and stuff that made no sense. And then you get out and you didn't know what you were doing. My wife went through nursing school. You get done nursing school, you can't go work as a nurse. You don't learn how to be a nurse until you start working the floor. And then the nurses teach you how to do this. It's like, well, why didn't I learn that in school? And so everybody seems to do that to us. Is we so the culture that students have right now is they're just making me do my time, and I don't really have to learn. Now everybody's not that way. Don't get me wrong, but the majority are.
I can't imagine having a professor who was actually doing this, actually making money, showing everybody, and for me to look and say, "Oh, that's nice." Like
Yeah,
to me, that doesn't compute.
it doesn't
But I
compute.
guess
No.
I don't know. I guess I'm different, and I agree with you. I think we are absolutely trained to go through school and just be like, I want to get through school. That was me, but I also didn't have you as a professor. So continue.
Well, it's hard to find good professors, so I understand. I mean, I didn't ever have one good professor that actually took me and said, actually, one of the things that made me annoying as a student in the business programs, I'd ask them, so what have you done? And, all they'd talk about is their degrees. And I said, no, but I mean, what have you done? And of course, I didn't get my first degree until I was probably 33.
Mm.
So I'd already started and run several businesses. And I just thought getting a degree would help me be better at business. And what I realized it wasn't. Um, Getting me better. And I mean, if somebody told me today, like one of my kids, um, I told them go through, learn to be an accountant, so you understand the basics of business, get an accounting degree. From there, you can do whatever. From there, one of them became an attorney, but he had his, business degree. One of them became a teacher and is now a counselor, and one is a sales, doing really well and top of his class, but it's or top of his sales force because of their understanding that what I try to teach my kids when I'm trying to teach the students is that it's your responsibility to go learn. Um, and our education system hasn't done a good job of that, in my opinion. We put the burden on somebody else, some system or whatever, but the students don't come in thinking I need to learn this stuff because I could be in trouble. And a lot of these students I actually would hear back 5, 10 years later and say, "No, hey, remember that thing you did on the wall? Remember that investing thing? Hey, remember, whatever." Because they weren't prepared. We graduated them, they know nothing. And I tell them, you don't get a business or 4 year business degree. There's not somebody out there waiting to hire you. That doesn't get you anything. At least if you're an accountant, you could at least get a job for 50, $60,000 a year. But a business major, sports management, what are you going to do with that?
Hmm.
You're not going to go to some D1 school and say, "Oh, thank God you got a sports management degree. We want to hire you as the assistant coach or something." And that doesn't happen. So just helping them understand that. But it was really frustrating. They were actually the reason I finally retired from it, other than COVID. Teaching from home wasn't fun, but I just was frustrated at the lack of care from people who would spend 40 at this school, $40,000 a year to get an education just so they could get that piece of paper for whatever reason. Nobody knows. They don't know, but really is so they could play sports for 4 more years. And it's just
Wow.
it's a bad system. It's for that reason I wish, not that it matters for this deal, but I wish
Yeah.
they I wish they'd separate sports from schools like they
Hmm.
do in Europe.
In Europe.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
more sense to me. They make these students who are athletes go to a class where they can't perform well, and we don't make people who are really smart play sports in order to continue to learn, right?
That's a
But
good point.
we make athletes have to learn in order to play sports. It's just a weird thing, and we just saw that when we watched the most of us probably watched the Miami Indiana game, and the quarterback from Miami is like, "Yeah, I've been to class for 2 years. What are you talking about?" And that is exactly what's wrong with. He's going to Miami because he's playing football, not because he's there to learn. And that's what he was saying. Now, oh, I graduated 4 years ago. Now I'm in a postgraduate, which they created so these guys could continue to play sports. I just don't like that system.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We could talk about that for a long time. We pause this episode to remind you that this podcast is sponsored by the Be Connected newsletter. If you're a parent who wants to make the most of your time with your kids while they're still young, while also setting them up for a bright future, then subscribe to the Be Connected newsletter so that you can be connected with the most relevant ideas, products, and experiences for your family. That's beconnected.co, BCONNECTD.co. Subscribe for free today and get access to candid reviews on the things that you never knew that you needed for your family. Now back to the show. Tell me, did you see a difference? Because I always find it interesting talking to people 5, even 10 years after they exited WorldVentures, whatever that looked like, whether they made money or they just went to trainings that didn't make money or they just had fun. It's cool to see so many people that are doing well at a higher level than I think a lot of others just because of their experience. Tell me, in your experience, the kids who went through your class in network marketing and actually gave it a serious go, did you see a difference with those ones? Was there something different
Yeah.
about those? Tell me about that.
Yeah, but this difference was what they already were before they took the class. I don't know that I changed any kid. I had, after the first day of class, my first day of class in any, no matter which class I was teaching, was to inspire them as to why they should take my class and what they're going to get out of it. And after that, well, I'll call it inspirational message. They would, usually 4 or 5 would come after it. "Man, that sounds great. Would you teach me? I want you to mentor me, blah, blah, blah." Well, when somebody comes up and says, "I want you to mentor me," what they really mean, I've learned, is, can you just give it to me? Can you just baby step me? And I don't mind. You start out slow. But so the first thing I do is give them an assignment. It didn't matter what, just something that says, go do this and come back. And that's where you lose 90% of them. Because while it sounds exciting, and as you know, motivation is really easy to have for 5, 10 minutes, but it's really hard to have it for years. So when you say I have a dream, is that a 5 minute dream, a 10 minute dream, or is it a lifetime dream? And that's where it's what separates people, right? So if this kid comes into network marketing Or really, what I did at reverse is I would find people that seemed like they were really motivated. They were really good at their sport, for instance, because to get really good at a sport, you actually have to do something different than the other kids, right? So
Hmm.
if they were the top starter in golf or tennis or whatever, they also were usually really good at life and just stuff. And so I said, you know what, you got to take this network marketing class because I think you could kill it at whatever. Go find one you like. I'll help you build it and let's go do that. And they're like, okay, cool. So that's when I started because the school was worried about them spending money and then it making it look bad because it's easy to look bad when you have all, you don't want a bunch of students spending $500 and then they're complaining to their parents that, we suckered them into whatever.
Right.
The, and the parents don't know that we didn't put them in there. Some company did, but if professors involved or schools involved, it can get dicey really quick. So that's part of the reason I came up with the program was, well, don't spend the money yet. First, go see if you can even, here's the process. So I wrote a little book and I said, step one, go do this. Step two, go do this. Step three. So step five was join the company. But
Mm,
it was after, let's see if you even have what it takes. Can you be motivated for more than a week? Can you go 2 weeks? What if you don't get six people in a month? Are you done? Those kind of things.
mm,
Because as you know from being in it, where a lot of people think the action is well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy in. I'm going to spend that $500. And I understand why, because everybody claps, right? It's like, yay, you're in. Well, you don't got nothing. We don't know anything about you, right? It's kind of like the person who's 100 pounds overweight. The reason they don't lose weight, what they really like is I go to you and say, hey, guess what? I'm starting a new weight loss program. Everybody goes, yay, way to go, way to go.
the
They just
dopamine
got
hit of that.
everything. Yeah, they got everything they need right there. They don't need to go lose weight,
Yep.
except come up with a new weight loss program 6 months later. So everybody claps their hands and says, "Yay, you did it!" Well, network marketing is no different, right? I join a whole room, stand up, clap, "Yay, you're in, you're in." That's it. They're done. So I'd rather say, let's wait. And I know this is going to sound mean. It reminds me of a story when they had this thing at senior day in high school, and my oldest son was a senior that year, and so they, hey, come in and talk, and tell us, and so we had, I don't know, probably 30 parents that were there, and they were supposed to say something about their kid, right? Whatever. And I I didn't plan this, but I said, my son, his name's Josiah, is a wonderful kid, straight arrow, but as of yet, he hasn't done anything great. He's average student, he could be better. He's an average athlete, he could be better. He hasn't learned the price of success yet. And it's interesting the number of people afterwards is like, man, because usually they're up there, oh man, my son is, rock star. Nobody's done anything as a rock star by the time they're in 12. I mean, you know, maybe they did some good stuff at a football game or something, but as we know from history, that doesn't make you a rock star. How many
Hmm.
guys that won the state football game in high school are washouts drunks 10 years later, you know? Because you've got to learn what it takes to be successful, which means you've got to learn for yourself that I do it for me, right? I'm not trying to be a football player for my dad or my mom or so the girls like me. It's because I aspire to greatness, whatever it is. So I can learn how to be a great football player. I could also learn how to be a great business person. I could be a great husband. I could be a great father because it takes all the same skills. So that's really what I was trying to teach in business was learn to be great. What does it take to be great? And part of that is find out what motivates you and stick to it because the world will beat you up and say, oh, no, that's dumb, especially when it's not working. But then that same world, when it's working, say, "Oh, I always knew that would happen." But I hate that because they don't care. Nobody does, and your family often are the worst because does your brother really want you to be a millionaire while he's not? Not really.
Right.
So it's a tough world out there. Even your parents may not. My dad, I remember when he was, and we had a good relationship, but again, remember he worked all the time. And it seemed to him that I worked at not working all the time. So he'd say, "Man, you sure are lazy, son." That's why I'm 18.
Really.
And and what he didn't understand, and of course we talk about it today is kind of funny because he, he's okay and he lives on a pension, but I support his pension. Help him make it because I have a different lifestyle that can support what he wants to do that he couldn't do on his own. And I said, Dad, what you didn't understand, of course, is it's not lazy. I looked at work completely different than you, and I didn't think going to work was a good idea because I'm afraid somebody would fire me. Let me take World Ventures. What a wonderful opportunity. Lots of people made a lot of money, but we can't control what the owners do.
Right.
And
Learn that.
yeah, if the owners decide one day to, make a bad decision, try to put out a card that doesn't work, whatever it is, doesn't matter. It all closes no matter whether if I'm making $1 million a year or $10 a year, it's over for me. And we've all been in those, where we're making big money. A couple of the companies I was in, uh, matter of fact, I think every single network marketing company I was in that I was making more than 10 grand a month closed just one day.
Out of your control.
Yep, couldn't. No, my check stopped. And I thought, network marketing really isn't working for yourself, to be clear, right? Unless you control the company, you're not working for yourself. So I'm not saying that's bad or good, but you're still an employee that could make a lot of money. And people say, well, nobody makes money in network marketing. And I said, well, that's not true, but it's the same truth as how many people make money at starting a restaurant or starting an ice cream shop. 1%, 2% make all the money. And the other 98% somewhere along the way drop off and fail. And it's no different network marketing. If you have the skills to go out and kill it, you could kill it in anything. And network marketing can get you to millions of dollars without putting the infrastructure together. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a piece of the ownership, you'll be, I don't know how much Byron was making at the time, but he must have been killing it. And all of a sudden one day it's over and he's doing
Yeah.
something else today and had to rebuild. But
Yep.
what I like about those guys is they know how to rebuild because they knew how to build it the first time.
Yeah, that's very true. Let me ask you this on that note. What do you see as the difference between the people who make it, since you've, made money in network marketing, you've made money in traditional business, day trading, which I want to talk about more here shortly. But what's the difference between the people who make it and the people who don't?
It's who they are. Um, if I can't, where I saw something the other day that was so true, and I don't remember, and I know that you probably do, or whoever's listening would know who this was, but um, there was somebody that said, "I didn't hire that guy because he's cheating on his wife."
Mm,
It was a CEO or something. I can't remember the details, and I thought about that, and I thought that's how I am. If you don't have integrity, it doesn't matter if we draw up pages and pages and pay attorneys, it will not work.
mm,
If I can't trust you to do whatever you say you're going to do, if I can't trust you to be around my daughter, if I can't trust you to, you know, I used to tell my students in class, if I said, hey, Brian, I got to leave the country, I need to put this $1 million in your safe, I'll be back in a year to get it, would I do that? Because then we could do a business together, right? But no matter how
exactly.
much paperwork I had to make sure you didn't steal my $1 million, when I came back a year later, if that $1 million is gone, that paperwork means nothing. And many people find that out. So to me, you have to become the kind of person that other people can trust. Um, we have a saying. I hope this doesn't sound
Go for
bad. Um, if it is, edit it out because I don't want to cause a stir. But
it. Go for
uh,
it.
my wife and I, we grew up. There was a book when I was young, a lady named Corrie Ten Boom, and she was in, captured by the Nazis and went through all the camps. And her sister ended up getting killed, and she survived. And my wife and I, we got married in '98, and we talked at the time. We had both read the book and read a lot of that stuff. And it's such terrible times. And out of that, for some reason, we have this saying. It's like, well, we'd go to a meeting, and my wife I'd always have her with me, and at the end, I say, "So, would you hide in their house?"
Mm,
And I think, to me, if you think about five people it's a different thought. It's like, well, I wouldn't. Why not? And then you have to think through, why would I not trust that person with my life, right? And thinking through, how do we create trust? What makes me say, Brian, I'm in trouble, can I hide in your house, whatever that is. And there's some people that I don't even like, but I would hide in their house, and there's some people I like and I wouldn't. And so I don't know how to decide, but I just know when I ask that question, or she asks that question, it's like, if we wouldn't hide in their house, we're not going to do business with them. or she feels that way. And so to me, being that person, because you know what success is? It's boring. It's just I get up every morning, I do this. For me, I start with, God, what's on your mind? What can I do to further glorify you? And then I have breakfast, and then although in the last 10 years I've skipped breakfast, I now start eating at lunch. But my point is, whatever it is, if I change and I don't have breakfast anymore, it's not because it's random. It's because there's a purpose for it. There's an old book, Purpose Driven Life, that I forget who wrote it, but um, and probably Purpose
Rick
Driven.
Warren, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. And so it's those kinds of things that says, why do you get up in the morning? What's your point today? If you're not religious, what's your point today? If you are religious, it's usually to, you know, further that religion, or at least become more of that person you are in the Christian world, is to bring glory to the God who saved you and created you. But you have a purpose, and what is that? So if I don't eat until noon, why is that? Well, because I have this rule: I won't go over 200 pounds in my life. So that's not bench pressing, by the way. That's my weight.
Okay.
And so if I don't have that, then I go to 210, I go to 250, right? Whatever that is, because I like ice cream, I like sweets, I like whatever. So I have to have those all through my life that says success is boring. I just do the same. Parenting is boring. You just do the same thing. You don't, one minute I'm not emotionally raging with my kids, the next minute we're, having fun. It's the same. I'm steady all the way through. Now, for me, that's easier because that's my personality. But for other people, I've noticed they have to do that. If you're the life of the party, the problem is you also can be the death of the party the next day because you're just a roller coaster. We all know those people.
Mm.
Well, if you marry that guy or girl and you think, man, they are fun to party with, well, what about the next day when they forgot their medication or whatever it is, or they're not high off or whatever? And so it's just learning to deal with life and just go through the motion. The only reason I'm successfully married to my wife is because every day our goal is when we wake up is what can I do today to make sure she knows it was a good idea to marry me,
That's a good
right?
filtering question.
Yeah. And otherwise, why, at some point, a year, 2, 3 years later, they're going to think, why did I marry that guy? Right. So I got to give them a reason. And every morning she wants a reason, give me a reason why I'm still doing that. And that's what I think we as people have to become, is that just, doesn't mean you can't have fun, but there's some stuff in life you just got to do. You got to get up by a certain time. You got to eat healthy. You got to exercise. You've got to study something to make you better. I used to ask my students, I'd say, what are you working on today that if it worked would make $1 million? Is there anything you're doing that if it worked, you know, and that's just money. You could say, what are you doing today to find a good spouse? What are you becoming? My fourth son, who is today an attorney, he was somebody that when he was 20, he was just ready to get married. Loved this girl. And I said, his name's Sam. I said, Sam, you are nothing like you're going to be in 5 years, and you don't want to marry the person that would take you today
Hmm.
because they wouldn't be a good fit. 5 years from now, that's not who you're going to be. And it's particularly with guys. Guys between 20 and 25 are completely different. I think there's some wires that finally connect and they become something. But before that, there's something else. And I could really see that in my fourth son. And so I told him to wait, just wait. And he did. Fortunately, he's always been willing to listen. And then he met this one girl a couple of years ago, and we got to know her stuff. And he one day comes up about a year ago and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about marrying this girl, but if you and mom say no, she's out. I'm done."
Mm.
And I'm like, "That's great. You're now ready to get married because now you're the person that I remembered that I thought you were gonna be when you were 20, and now
Mm.
you're old enough to get married." And so it's that process we all have to do, right? Is him developing into somebody that's worth being with, whether it's a marriage relationship, whether it's a partnership in a business, it's all the same. Is what do you bring to the table is valuable. A skill. Skills, as you know, are worthless if you don't, or if you're not a person of integrity, then you're going to ruin the team.
Mm.
And
So
we've all seen that.
it's skills and the piece of the integrity, which, if I'm hearing you right, it's like do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And I think it's Alex Hermosi that talks about just building undeniable proof that you are the person that you say you are by,
Yeah.
having the stack of proof.
But the stack of proof for me, and unfortunately, I don't tend to read those books. I know about them. Like say the Rick Warren. The only thing I know about his book is the title, right? I'm assuming I know what's in the book, but when we've lived long enough, you know what they're talking about. But what what my thing is you know whether you've earned it. You know if you have integrity, and that's what matters. I think about these athletes.
Right.
The reason they can go out and do great things on the field because they know they put in the reps off the field, and that they've convinced themselves, not the coach, not the world. They don't care anymore about what they think. They only care about what do I believe. And that's a big thing. We see a lot of people get hyped, they get the music going, they get themselves emotionally cranked up. It means nothing. You either are or you aren't, and you know it. And when you know it, then you're the best father or the best husband or the best wife or the best business partner because that's just who you are and you know it. And if you find somebody else like that, nobody's going to stop you.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Let me ask you a semi off-topic question that I've been pondering, and then I want to ask a little bit more about your day trading before we wrap this thing up because that part is fascinating to me too. But since you've got so much experience as a professor, as somebody in the business world, as somebody who's been around athletes, I've noticed, and I want to hear if you've seen the same or if it's just me, some of the best performing business people that go on to do something significantly business wise. A lot of them were former athletes who did not achieve the peak or did not achieve their potential on the field or on the court or or wherever they were playing.
Sure.
Either they got hurt or they just didn't fulfill their potential for whatever blank reason. So they've got this chip on their shoulder and then
Mhm.
they're able to go to the next level in business because they don't want to make the same mistake there. Have you
Yeah.
ever noticed that?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I have some relatives that played for K-State and just on the bubble going pro or not, just they're 2 seconds slow around the turn, whatever it is, right? They're just right there and they can taste it. As a matter of fact, I tell people probably the worst curse, and I know somebody else has said this, the other part. The worst thing you can do is make $50,000 a year. Why? Because it's going to keep you from making a million, right? Well, the worst thing you can be is think you're going to go pro and then you're 35 years old and you still haven't, right? When do you cut your losses and move on? And so these D1 athletes, we'll call them, are on the bubble. They were good in grade school. They were the fastest. They were good in high school. They got a lot of accolades from that. They move on to a college, whatever level, and they're the starter, but they can't quite make it to where it makes money, right? And I'm sure you know these guys too. They will sit around for years trying to just get a little better, a little faster, a little something just to get that next level. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden they're 30, 35 and they're not. They can't. They didn't do it. The smarter guy to me is the guy that is honest with himself because he's doing it for himself, right? And he says to himself, you know what? I am a really good at this, but I'm not great.
Hmm.
Or I got injured, whatever it is, and you just pick yourself and say, but the same skills that got me to be really good at this is the same skills that are going to make me good at that if they have character. Because what I've noticed is lack of character just ruins lives. You see it whether it's a pastor, whether it's a business person, you just see it over and over that it sneaks up on them. They think they're hiding something, whatever it is, and one day it gets them. It's like the perfect trap that's set, and it destroys their marriage, it destroys their relationships, their reputation, whatever it is. But if that kid learns from sports like everybody pretends like they do, which is all this integrity, honesty, and stuff like that, it's on every T-shirt of every team, right?
Yeah.
But if that kid, that 1 or 2% of those kids that actually believe it, that's the kid I want to do whatever with. That's the kid I want my daughter to marry or my son to marry because I don't care about their past. I care about what did they do from it, right? What did they become out of that? If you start at -10 and you're up to zero, that's just as good as the guy that starts at zero and is +10, right? It's being able to measure that. And and when I say measure, I mean that you know that you were dealt bad cards. And you know that you are now back out of the basement, and now you're ready to go. And when you have that belief, there's a belief that we have access to that changes us. We call it metamorphosis, right? That changes you from that caterpillar to a butterfly. That you can't believe when you're a caterpillar. If somebody says, "Hey, see that thing flying by? That's us someday," right?
Hmm.
Well, there's no way that could be true. We are the same thing. We can become about anything. There's a story in the Old Testament when God came down, and in the story of Tower of Babel, and this whatever it is, they built this something that God needed to destroy, maybe a big tall city building or whatever, a tower. But what I get out of the story is God says to whoever he's talking to, which we assume would be Jesus or the Trinity, we must go change their language, otherwise they can do whatever they put their mind to. So God, who created us, is saying to the Son, who will someday die for us, we ought to change this because they can do whatever we agree, we know they can do whatever they put their mind to. So we need to change the language because what they're putting their mind to right now is evil. And
Mm.
it's that everything they did, everything they tried to do was evil in these days. And in those days, they were just doing bad stuff. And so he said, we got to change that because they will destroy or do whatever. So I think about that a lot because even though that was punishment to the people at the time, what we know from our Creator is we have the potential to do whatever we put our mind to, whoever we are. And so we all have that. And those are the people I love is when they tap in and says, yeah, I can do that. So um, it's just a matter of recognizing that truth, I think. And a lot of non-religious people also know that's true. Like the whole,
Yeah.
The Secret, um, and all these different people come up with all these movies and whatever. Non-religious people, or maybe religious, but it's all a principle that they know, just like gravity, right? If I go up on a building, I will fall off every single time, and so will you. We just know that's true. Well, this
Yeah.
other is true too, right? We actually create what we think, and science has proven that as well. So, yeah.
There's power in believing for sure.
And everybody says it
Um,
so much that I think people quit thinking it's true, right? I mean, it's like you overhear something and you think, oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Whatever I believe is true. It's on my T-shirt. It's on everybody's shirt. We all know that. But sometimes it sinks down and somebody says, "Oh, that is true. Oh, I'm going to live that life then," right?
mm,
It's whatever that is.
gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I've really enjoyed talking with you. I've got a lot out of what you've shared. I mean, one of the biggest points that I think about is like you pointed a lot of your success today and the rich relationships you have today as finding people that you were able to help without expecting anything. And I think it was Eric Rosbowski who said, back in WorldVentures is give without expectation and receive without limitation was
Mhm.
one of his quotes.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
it's just a great reminder to like give without expecting anything. And, who knows what that turns into down the line,
Mhm.
5, 10, 20 years plus. Um,
It is.
so thank you for being on. I want to ask you, so day trading, that's such a fascinating thing to me that you can,
Hmm.
and it's even more interesting to think about prior to 2000, how much different it was to be able to do that, having to call a broker and do all these things.
Yeah.
How did,
Hmm.
h- being able to create the type of income that you've been able to create, what was the learning curve to get to that point where you could just literally turn on a computer, look at some stuff, press some buttons, and make whatever it is, 100, 500, $1,000 a day, whatever the number is.
Yeah. What I've learned the hard way is, like everything, it's incredibly hard. Day trading is is a money machine that's been locked down by whoever runs and controls it years ago, right? It's tough to be a Warren Buffett. It's tough to for you and I to get into the game and say, yeah, I turned 10,000 into $10 million, right? Um, because it's the process that matters. And what I mean by that is if I don't have the personality that I can say, when I go into and there's different types of trading. I'm when most people think about trading, they're saying, "Hey, I bought Apple stock at this, and then I sell it at this." And when I tried to teach what I'm trying to do, that's not buying stocks and selling stocks. And those guys are supposed to research the company, figure out all the stuff they need to figure out. And then from that, they decide whether they should buy or sell it and when. But what I've noticed is what they really do is I call chart trading is they just look at the 52-week low and buy, and then when it gets up to a certain point, they sell, right? And so that is probably the day trading is a term, actually it's a tax term that says that you make so many trades and it's your full-time occupation, those types of things. Then you can write off your office and your house or whatever, and a lower tax bracket on some of the money. But or you could trade your own Roth 401k, which in my opinion is probably the best way.
Hmm.
Manage it yourself. But then you can grow it inside that Roth and then pull it out. But anyway, um, so the only if if you're going to be successful at any of it, we've talked about it in life, and so I'm going to parallel to trading. I have to have the personality that I have a set of rules that I write down. I have practiced these things on fake money for let's say however until I can be right. And but
And
what
by
I've
that, can I interrupt? And just for people that might not be as familiar, you can open up a brokerage account at whatever, TD Ameritrade, E-Trade,
yeah.
and literally set up an account where it's fake money. So you're practicing, but you're not
Yeah,
actually using your real money. Is that right?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They call it, I think it's called paper money or something, but paper trading, uh, which I did the first year. So you have to learn the skill of it, but what it doesn't set you up for is can you handle the pressure of it? Fake money's easy. I go in there with fake money, man. I was making 10, 20 grand every single day, right? I'd go to my wife and say, look, man, I'm killing. She says, is that real? Well, no, but, you know, because there's no fear, right? I can make 10 free throws in a row if I'm sitting out in my backyard, but put me out in front of 10,000 people and it's the final, you know, game and whatever. No, I'm not making 10 out of 10
Great analogy.
if I can't control that fear, right? And the other thing I have to control is greed. And so we have this innate thing in us that we don't like to lose. And so what we tend to do as traders, and anybody's ever traded will feel this is once I'm up a penny or two, I'll capture it. But man, I will ride losses forever. Double down, triple down. I will do whatever it takes to be right. So that finally when it turns, I'll break even. And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a great day. So just the natural tendency of humans is that we're bad decision makers. Our emotions destroy us, right? So we'll double down to lose, and some of those you end up losing, and you're just getting killed, you're murdered. So finally you'll take your losses. Well, at least I didn't lose all my account, I only lost half, whatever. So you put things in places. I'll never have more than a day that I lose 5% of my account. Or, when I win 2%. I tell when I was teaching my son how to do it, I said, all I want to be is I want to get to first or second base every day. I'm not looking for a home run. I don't need a home run. I just need to make this much, every day. It's boring. There's no excitement. I don't come out and say, guess what, honey? We're rich. We got all this. I made it today because that next day I will give it all back. That personality that we see on, YouTube or whatever, the influencers. You only see the ones that they're in Vegas and they throw the dice and ding, 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 they win all the money. They don't show you that night when they sneak back in there and they give it all back, right? And we all know that. We all feel that because it's easier to lose than win. Everything about life is easier to lose than win. It's easier to lose your marriage than to keep your marriage. It's easier to have a bad relationship with your boss than a good, everything is work to be good. So day trading is no different than anything else. So the only reason if I suggest day trading is this. If you're going to spend time, 10,000 hours, let's say, to get good at something, and this is what somebody told me once when I was running all these stores, the problem with business is employees, whether it's finding them or good ones or whatever. And as soon as they get good, they go off and start their own. They figure out what you're doing and all that, right? It's just a constant headache. They don't show up or whatever. And one day a guy told me that taught me about this day trading. He says, why do you start a business? And I said, well, besides all the benevolent things of loving people and blah, 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 I also need to make money. And I try to, make 8, 10% a year on it and whatever. Okay. So what if you could do that a month or, 6 months and you didn't have any employees? I'm like, yeah, I'm in on that warehouse. Now tell me how that works, right?
Yeah.
And so all I'm saying is, if it's true that you could take $5,000 and turn it into $1 million in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, or whatever, and you didn't have employees and it puts you in the best tax bracket possible, then why not look at it? Why not try to get good at that? Why not find out if you have the personality that under pressure is still going to make a good decision? You're not going to throw an interception when it's the final throw, right? You're going to actually hit the guy. And
Hmm.
it's the difference, right? And that's what makes the top 1%. I play a lot of golf and I see that, the top 100 golfers, I think, are all the same skill. But the top golfer has something mentally better than the other people. He can handle the emotion. Maybe he looks forward to that final shot. He looks forward to showing himself. He's not trying to impress anybody, I don't think. He's saying, I want to see, watch this. Prove to yourself that you're going to do that. And so the same with day trading. So when you do paper trading and it's all fake, that's one thing. You've learned the skill. You know how to throw the ball. You know how to make a free throw. But the next step is, can I do the same thing under pressure? Now put 5,000 in the account. How do I do? Did I change my formula? Am I not doing what I did earlier? Okay, then you better quit and go back to this because you don't really trust yourself. You don't think that you really have a good system. And so
Hmm.
until you create a process that you proved works to yourself and you look at the numbers, that's what I like about business is easy. Sports is easy. There's a measuring system, right? Now I noticed what professors thought. I remember this one professor, she used to always say, I'm the best professor that's ever been at this college. And I said, well, how do you know that? But according to who? Right? And we all have those, right? The sports team. I said, well, how's your team this year? Oh, we're gonna kill it. We're good. And I said, well, you haven't had a game yet. I know, but and it's the scoreboard that you're up against, right? So you can check yourself when you're day trading, paper trading, real trading, and learn the skill and see if you can do it, and then see if you can transfer it to that. And if you can't, go on and do something else. If you can, then you're probably going to make good money at it because again, it's boring. You're just sitting there, paying, oh man, your day trading is exciting. No, I get up at 9 o'clock. I look at the market. I see the trade. I go into the trade. It either wins or loses. This is what I do. And then do that. And by 10 or 10:30, I'm done because that's what I do.
Hmm.
There's nothing exciting about it all. It's just a thing.
And how long did it take you to get to the point where you could start making money after you were just doing the paper trading, if you remember?
Well, the real secret, just to be fully honest, is that it doesn't turn until the market, the industry doesn't have a way for you to back test. You know what back testing is? So like
Go
if
ahead.
you're looking at Apple stock, for instance, and you say, man, every time it hits this price point 3 times in a row within 3 days, it falls 10%. Okay. Well, how do you know that's true? Well, because I look back 10 days. Well, look back 10 years and then you'll know. Well, the problem is that when you start looking back 10 years, you realize that you did all this work, you write it all down, you mark out the charts. Then the next day, you look at the very same work you did the day before and you realize you screwed up half of it because our minds get unfocused and we're trying to. But if you could find a way to back test that and says, okay, I'm going to put this into my computer and I want every time it sees this pattern, I want to know what percentage. Well, if you could do that, write code and do that, then you would see, oh, okay, every time it triple tops, it falls 10% if it triple tops within this time period, right? So you'll have 5 or 10 parameters that you'll find that you have to know that if when these 10 things are true, then this is true. So, in my opinion, you have to have some way to go through whether you can do it with, 10 guys each looking through 10 days or, something that says this can be true if this is true. And those are the only trades that I'm going to do. So, if you
Mhm.
can get to that point, fortunately for me, my brother has some really good computer skills. So, he has the ability to, if I say, hey, you know what, I think every time it double tops and, it climbs 2% of the market, it's going to fall 4% of the market. So 10 minutes later, he says, no, that's not true. That's 50-50. And so we have a joke. Everything is 50-50, right? If you go to Vegas and put it on red, it's 50-50. But the problem is the reason you lose is the house gets a percentage. And it's the same with trading, right? The house gets a percentage, there's slip. If I go in at price point 10, it doesn't pick me up until it's 10.2. So I don't really get it at 10. I've already lost, a quarter of it, 0.25 in the one I do. There's 4 ticks in every point. So you get that
Okay.
slippage. Somebody else is getting that money at the house, right? At Vegas, if I play uh, roulette and I have two green um, zeros, zero and double zero. Now I think they have triple zero now. My odds continue to go down. I'm no longer 50-50. I'm 52%. I'm 51%. And the houses are going to win 9% year in and year out. Well, it's the same with trading. So unless you're right 67, 68% of the time, in this particular scenario, then you can't win, right? You've got slip. You've got to, if you want an ROI of whatever it is, you've got to and make a living off of it. Not only do you have to pull money to live off of, you got to keep the rest of the money. It makes enough money that you can grow. So there's all those factors that you have to play. But my point is, it's for me, it was worth learning, worth the headache of sitting for hours every day playing funny money, thinking I should go out and make money because I'm not making any money. I'm just playing funny money here. But you
Hmm.
spend months and months and months because there's a dream that says, you know what, this is what I want to do. I don't want to manage employees anymore. I don't want to open kiosk in malls. I don't want to go start a tire store and do all that. I want to sit at home and do this. And I want to do it for 2 or 3 hours a day. So for me, it was a big enough dream to keep fighting for that because it's a battle like everything, to get good at, to control your emotion, to find people that maybe can help you the part you can't do. Like my brother said, hey, let me help you. I can maybe come up with some way to backtest some of your stuff and whatever
Yeah.
so you can get there. Otherwise, you don't. You just fool yourself, and you're like that D1 athlete who 10, 20 years later is still pretending like they're going to go pro. You move on, find something else, find something you get good at and do it.
There you
I
go.
think everybody has that. It's just what is it?
There you go. Really good. Well, I know we've gone over time. So thank you. Any last thoughts or anything that you want to share about the World Ventures experience, how that's shaped anything you do today, or just anything for people that are listening here looking to, you know, live their best life for lack of a better term, find that
Yeah.
next opportunity, next career, make life better for their family.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I'm clear on the most important thing I have found in life. And I'm now 60, so I've got, I tell people I've lived at least half my life, right? And what I really, if there's one thing that I have learned in life is you have to be a disciplined person to succeed. I don't care what you're talking about. You have to discipline yourself. Don't let yourself get 100 pounds overweight. Don't let yourself not exercise. Don't let yourself get bad habits of, whatever. I become an alcoholic or I become a drug addict or I don't let yourself fall into that stuff. They're all along this. I see this like this path, and on the side of path is all these things that cause failure. Staying on the path of success is really hard because with relationships, with money, with business, it doesn't matter. There's they're fraught with peril, this path. And so you have to really focus on, and I'm not talking about reading self-help books. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying I've never read one because I know what success looks like, and so do you. And I know what it takes to be successful, and so do you. And it's not reading the book, it's actually doing the book. And I actually have to start today with my diet, not tomorrow. It's tonight I'm not going to eat dinner, not tomorrow night, right? It's today I'm going to learn how to speak Spanish or whatever it is. And so it's just becoming that person that says, I'm going to start now and I'm going to fail and I'm going to start again and I'm going to start. And every single time, and all these athletes always have this saying, well, it's not how many times you fail, it's how many times you get up. Well, that's true with you, right? Yeah, I'm okay. So I went and got a drink, and because I'm an alcoholic, but I'm stopped. I'm going to go back. I'm going to get back to it and back to it. And there's some ways I want to get into that makes change certainly a lot easier than trying to fix it yourself. But the point is, if you can stay on that narrow path of success, whatever it is, you can stay there. And if you can find somebody else to do it with you, then it's twice as easy, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a business partner, that both of you say, and we know what that path looks like, and we're going to keep each other on it. And you have a problem with addiction to drugs, I have a problem with addiction to women, whatever it is, but you're going to keep me from that, and I'm going to keep you from that. We're going to stay on this path because we want to succeed worse than we want that other thing, whatever it is. And I've noticed we have a culture right now of people that are soft enough that they don't want the hardness of being good at stuff. They want it given to them. They want it just to flow, and it gets them angry when it doesn't just come to them, right? They don't realize how hard it is to earn something and the feeling you get from the value you get as a person to know you earned it. There's nobody on welfare that feels proud about, you know, that. I don't think. I don't know them.
Hmm.
But everybody who's built their own thing, they're really proud about it, whatever it is, because they know what they had to become to get it. Not because they're wealthy, because they know what they had to do to become that kind of person that could produce that kind of result. And that's why I like network marketing in the day is that you have to be that guy to go make it. You know, when I hang out with people like Byron, I saw they were that kind of guy. They're on stage and they're doing talking all stuff, but then you go walk with him, you see him talking to this old lady that they know isn't going to make it, is no value to them, and they'll spend 10 minutes talking to her about her dream. And that's what we become, right?
Mm. It's really good parting words and advice. Yeah, really, really good. Thank you, David. Super appreciate you
Good to
and
hear from you.
being on the show. Huge value add for people. So we'll see you on the other
You
side.
bet.